Ouverture du testament devant ses deux enfants. Jeanne, cette enveloppe est destinée à votre père. Retrouve-le et remets-lui cette enveloppe. Simon, cette enveloppe est destinée à votre frère.
There were some stories that don't just unfold, they unravel you, slowly, piece by piece, until what remains is something raw, shaken, and painfully aware. Incendies is one of those rare cinematic experiences that doesn't rely on spectacle or noise, but instead builds its power through silence, memory, and the unbearable weight of truth. Directed by Denis Villeneuve, the film is an adaptation of a stage play by Wajdi Mawad, and yet it feels far more expansive than its theatrical roots, stretching across time, geography, and the fragile landscape of human identity. The story begins with a quiet but deeply unsettling premise. After the death of Nawal Marwan, her twin children, Jeanne and Simon, are summoned to hear her final will. What they expect is closure, perhaps even a conventional goodbye. Instead, they're handed a mystery that feels almost cruel in its design. Two envelopes are placed before them, one addressed to a father they believed had long been dead, and another to a brother they never knew existed. In that moment, grief transforms into confusion, and confusion into a kind of existential fracture. Their mother, who spent her final years in silence, has left behind not answers, but a puzzle. John, more introspective and emotionally receptive, feels an immediate pull toward the unknown. For her, the silence of her mother was never empty. It was filled with something unresolved, something waiting to be uncovered. Simon, on the other hand, resists. He sees the will as a final manipulation, a continuation of the emotional distance that defined their relationship with Nawal. Yet even in his resistance, there is a bond that cannot be denied. His love for John becomes the bridge that eventually leads him into the same journey, even if he walks it reluctantly. What follows is not just a physical journey into the Middle East, but a descent into a past shaped by war, violence, and impossible choices. The film never explicitly names the country, but the echoes of real historical conflicts are unmistakable. It becomes clear that Nawal's life was forged in a landscape where identity could be a weapon and a burden, where survival often required the sacrifice of innocence. As Jeanne begins her search, the narrative splits into two parallel timelines, one following her investigation in the present, and the other reconstructing Nawal's life decades earlier. This dual structure is where the film finds its rhythm, moving back and forth like a heartbeat, each revelation in the past casting a shadow over the present. The transitions are seamless, almost haunting, as if time itself is folding in on the characters. Nawal's story begins with love, as many tragedies do. As a young woman, she experiences a forbidden relationship that results in the birth of a child. But in a society governed by rigid traditions and sectarian divides, this act of love becomes a crime. The child is taken from her, marked with a symbol, and sent away. That moment becomes the defining wound of her life, a loss that echoes through every decision she makes afterward. What makes Incendies so devastating is not just the events themselves, but the way they are revealed. The film doesn't rush to explain. It allows the audience to feel the weight of uncertainty, to sit in the discomfort of not knowing. As Jeanne uncovers fragments of her mother's past, each piece feels incomplete on its own, but together they begin to form a picture that is both tragic and terrifying. Nawal's search for her lost son becomes a lifelong obsession, one that takes her through war zones, refugee camps, and prisons. Along the way, she transforms from a vulnerable young woman into someone almost mythic in her resilience. She becomes a witness to atrocities, a victim of violence, and yet also a force that refuses to be erased. Her silence in later life is no longer a mystery. It becomes a testament to everything she endured, everything she carried without ever speaking. Simon's journey, when he finally joins John, adds another layer to the narrative. Where John seeks understanding, Simon seeks confrontation. He is angry, not just at his mother, but at the idea that his entire identity might be built on lies. His skepticism becomes a counterbalance to John's determination, and together they create a dynamic that feels deeply human. They are not heroes in the traditional sense. They are simply two people trying to make sense of something that may never fully make sense. The film's pacing is deliberate, almost meditative at times, but this is precisely what allows its emotional impact to build. There are no shortcuts here, no easy resolutions. Every revelation comes at a cost, and that cost is felt not just by the characters, but by the audience as well. The tension doesn't come from action, but from anticipation, the slow realization that something profoundly disturbing lies at the center of the story. One of the most striking aspects of Incendies is its use of silence. Dialogue is sparse, and when characters do speak, their words carry immense weight. Much of the story is told through expressions, through landscapes, through moments that linger just a little longer than expected. This restraint creates a sense of intimacy, drawing the viewer closer to the characters and their experiences. As the twins delve deeper into their mother's past, the lines between victim and perpetrator begin to blur. The film refuses to present a simplistic moral framework. Instead, it explores the complexities of human behavior in extreme circumstances. It asks difficult questions about identity, about the nature of violence, and about the possibility of forgiveness. These are not questions with easy answers, and the film doesn't attempt to provide them. The culmination of the story is both shocking and inevitable. By the time the final pieces fall into place, there is a sense that everything has been leading to this moment, even if it was impossible to predict. The revelation at the heart of the film is not just a twist, it is a profound statement about the cyclical nature of violence and the ways in which trauma can echo across generations. And yet, despite its darkness, the film is not without a sense of grace. There is something deeply human in the act of uncovering the truth, no matter how painful it may be. For Jeanne and Simon, the journey becomes a form of reconciliation, not just with their mother, but with themselves. They come to understand that Nawal's silence was not a rejection, but a shield, a way of protecting them from a reality too brutal to share. The legacy of Nawal Marwan is not defined by the suffering she endured, but by the strength she demonstrated in the face of it. Her story becomes a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, there is a capacity for endurance, for resistance, and perhaps even for a kind of quiet dignity. What Denis Villeneuve achieves with this film is nothing short of extraordinary. He takes a narrative that could easily become overwhelming and instead shapes it into something precise, controlled, and deeply affecting. His direction is confident, allowing the story to unfold at its own pace, trusting the audience to engage with its complexities. The performances are equally compelling, grounding the film in a sense of authenticity that makes its more dramatic moments feel all the more real. There is no excess here, no unnecessary embellishment. Every element of the film serves a purpose, contributing to a cohesive and powerful whole. Ultimately, Incendies is not just a story about a family, it is a story about history, about the ways in which personal and political narratives intersect and collide. It is about the scars that are passed down, often unseen, from one generation to the next. And it is about the courage it takes to confront those scars, to look directly at the truth, even when that truth threatens to destroy everything you thought you knew. By the end, the film leaves you with a sense of stillness, a kind of emotional aftermath that lingers long after the final scene. It doesn't offer comfort, but it offers something perhaps more valuable, a deeper understanding of the complexities of human experience. It reminds us that some stories cannot be neatly resolved, that some wounds do not fully heal, and that sometimes the act of knowing is both a burden and a form of liberation. And in that quiet, devastating realization, Incendies achieves something truly rare. It doesn't just tell a story, it leaves an imprint, one that stays with you, challenging you to reflect, to question, and to feel in ways that few films ever manage to accomplish.